Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited about this video because it is my kitchen cabinets transformation. I completely transformed my yellow beige kitchen to a beautiful white. The walls in my house are all white, so this kitchen stuck out like a sore thumb and I knew I had to get it painted. I got a few quotes from different companies and they were a little more expensive than I thought. So I thought, let me take on this project on my own. I've seen a few videos of people doing it themselves, so I can do it too. And it was harder than I thought, but the results are incredible. The first step for me was removing all the child safety locks from the cabinets. I had these stuck on since my son was very young, but he's almost 3 and no longer needs them. I had to use some dental floss to kind of get it in there and pick it off because it does really stick on the cabinets. But the best part is once the first layer comes off, the sticky portion that still remains on the cabinet can easily be removed with your fingernails, or if you have some sort of scraper, it makes it easy to come off, or even if you just sand it off, that would work as well, but removing them isn't that difficult. So the next thing I did was I looked for any holes that were either on my cabinet or on my island. Here specifically, this hole was on my island, and I filled it in with putty so that when I do put on my paint, it goes on nice and smooth with a clean finish. Okay, so the next step I learned from other videos that you have to label everything. So I just got a few plastic cups and I put some labels on them. And these cups are specifically for the screws that come from the cabinets. Usually these screws are important to go back in the same spot so that they fit correctly. So I made sure those went on those cups. And then when I removed the cabinets itself, I also labeled those cabinets so I remembered which side belonged where. And I just used some painter's tape and wrote directly on the tape itself. And every time I did spray paint one side, I would move the tape to the opposite side. I was a little more nervous to start painting the cabinets, so I thought, let me start off with the kitchen base, and I'm glad I did. I used a sand block there to start sanding off the edges to ensure a smooth finish, and also so that the paint actually sticks on to the surface much better. After sanding it down a little bit, I took a towel and wiped down any of the sand residue, any of the dust, so that none of that gets stuck in the actual paint. Then I went in with some painter's tape and lined up all the edges so I don't get paint everywhere because it's hard to keep a straight line these days. But honestly, with doing this, I learned that preparation is key. Just making sure that you prepare all of your work ahead of time is the most important thing, and it gets the job done so much faster. I went ahead and started off putting the primer on the kitchen base there. I am using a primer because I was advised that it does make the paint stick on a lot better and no other color will seep through. I will link it below for you guys interested. It is meant for cabinet repainting as well, so I did choose a good one. But this is one mistake I want to tell you guys that I did here. The strokes I was doing with the paintbrush were not the best strokes, so don't follow my technique here. You are supposed to go one direction if you want a flawless look and flawless finish with no streaks. So that was definitely one mistake I learned from there. The primer actually takes 24 hours to dry before you can do anything else with it. So I ended up starting off with my kitchen cabinets. The first step in that process is to have them cleaned. I used a dish sponge with some dish soap and water and just cleaned the front and back. And then I used a wet cloth to clean off the soap from front and back. Yes, I'm laughing here because you have to keep yourself company during this process that can be very frustrating. And then I went in with a towel to dry both sides, front and back, and took my sand block and front and back. I sanded both sides to make sure I have a smooth surface so that the paint can go on nicely and smoothly. For the kitchen base, I did use a paintbrush, but for the cabinets, I ended up spray painting them. I read online that it gives you a much cleaner finish without any strokes, and that was very true. It does also speed up the process. I took this project to the garage so that I don't spray paint everything around me, and I just laid down some cardboard boxes. And I saw this cute little trick in one of these videos where she used Legos to keep the actual cabinets above the ground, and she just put them in a triangle and then put the cabinet straight on top of it. I got my spray gun off of Amazon. I will link it below, and it was quite handy and very easy to use. This was my attire that I wore for the entire spray painting process because I didn't want to ruin any other clothing. I did end up ruining my mucklucks, which I kind of regret now, but they kept me warm in this brutal winter. One thing I don't recommend is doing this project in the winter because it does kind of mess up the cabinets with the paint. So I do recommend in warmer weather, it would work a lot better and it would be easier for you with the cold and how to dress, and it's just a lot easier. So here I am priming the cabinets. There are two mistakes, two lessons learned in this process. First off, I left the hinges on because I did not know how to remove them, which I later regretted and ended up removing them. So I did have to do another coat of primer for that reason. But this is the first coat of primer I'm putting on, and I had to get an extension cord so I can go from front to back of the garage with ease. It was a hell of a struggle because I ended up starting off from the front instead of the back. So that was another lesson. Start from the back and then move up to the front so that you don't have to avoid getting the wire dropping on the painted cabinets. For the drawers, I ended up hand painting them. I couldn't remove the actual face of the drawer, and I was obviously too lazy to cover the entire thing up. So I thought I would just hand paint those inside, and I did that with the primer and the actual paint itself, and it still turned out pretty good. Project itself is a little bit time consuming because of the waiting game. So with the primer, you have to wait 24 hours for each side before you can paint the next side. So I painted the first side with the primer, waited 24 hours, and here I am painting the second side with the primer. And then I did a second coat of primer for both sides, so that was an additional 2 days before I was even able to start on the actual paint. So I officially started painting with the actual paint color. I chose a beautiful white that doesn't reflect a gray or a yellow. It's just a true white, and it looks amazing on the cabinets. You can tell I learned my lesson. I'm actually painting from the back instead of the front, and it definitely helped so much. Now to clean up the hinges, which I initially spray painted, I learned online that you can boil them in baking soda for 20 minutes, and then you can scrub them off with some dish soap and a dish sponge, and they'll come off nice and easy and look brand new. I've always wanted black hardware, and since I was going white, I decided to just take the plunge and get myself some black hardware, and here is the final kitchen reveal. I am so happy to be sharing this with you guys. It looks absolutely incredible. I still cannot believe this kitchen is in my house. I love the results. It was so much harder than I expected it to be, but it was well worth it. So if you guys are thinking about doing it, I say do it. And if you have any questions about the process, let me know below, but I do recommend just looking at videos online and getting some tips and tricks. I've learned my lessons along the way, and I do have a few more transformations happening in this kitchen soon, so I will share those with you guys when they happen. But thank you guys again for watching this video. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.